Marcus Holloway stared at the holographic eviction notice floating above his wrist display, its alien script pulsing an angry crimson. 3 months on Veridian Prime, and he was already about to be homeless. The mining job that had brought him to this distant world had dissolved when the company went bankrupt, leaving him stranded among the towering spires of Astra City with dwindling credits and no return ticket to Earth. His apartment, a modest pod in the immigrant quarter, wasn't much, but it was all that stood between him and the notorious slums where humans rarely survived a week. Marcus swiped the notice away and collapsed onto his sleeping platform, wondering if the Earth Embassy would finally answer his requests for repatriation assistance. The door chime echoed through the small space. Marcus groaned, knowing exactly who it would be. "Entry granted," he muttered, and the door slid open to reveal Tellerin. His landlady had to duck to enter the human-sized doorway. At nearly 7 feet tall, with iridescent blue-green skin and 4 elegantly articulated arms, she embodied the aristocratic beauty of the Veridian species. Her upper set of arms was crossed in disapproval, while her lower set rested on the curve of her hips. The bioluminescent patterns along her neck and temples, indicators of mood among her kind, pulsed with impatience. "Human Marcus," she began, her translator rendering her melodic language into crisp English. "Your payment period has elapsed for the 3rd consecutive cycle. My patience, unlike your credit balance, is not infinite." Marcus stood, trying to maintain dignity despite being a foot shorter than his landlady. "I understand, Administrator Tellerin. I've been pursuing employment opportunities daily, but—" "The outcomes of your pursuits are evident," she interrupted, gesturing around his sparse apartment. "I must insist you vacate these premises within 3 rotations if payment cannot be rendered." Marcus felt his stomach sink. 3 days to find somewhere else to live on a planet where most species viewed humans as primitive curiosities at best, dangerous pests at worst. "Please," he said, adding the desperation in his voice. "I just need more time." Tellerin's upper eyes narrowed while her lower ones assessed him carefully. Then, unexpectedly, all 4 of her arms relaxed, and she sealed the door behind her. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "there is an alternative arrangement we might consider." Marcus blinked in surprise. "What kind of arrangement?" Tellerin moved to his window, staring out at the purple-hued skyline of Astra City. "I find myself in a predicament that may provide a solution to your financial difficulties." "I'm listening." "I hold significant status in my family lineage," she explained. "With this comes certain expectations, primary among them being the formation of a permanent bond with a suitable mate." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not sure how I can help with that." Tellerin turned, all 4 eyes focusing on him with unnerving intensity. "My family has selected several prospective mates, all of whom I find intellectually and physiologically incompatible. However, if I were to present myself as already claimed—" She let the implication hang in the air. "You want me to pretend to be your boyfriend?" Marcus asked incredulously. "The concept translates poorly, but essentially, yes. A temporary relationship facade would alleviate the immediate pressure from my familial circle. In exchange, your housing concerns would disappear. I would waive your rental obligations and provide basic necessities for the duration of our arrangement." Marcus ran a hand through his dark hair, mind racing. "This is unexpected. An interspecies pairing is unconventional enough to discourage further matchmaking attempts," Tellerin continued pragmatically, "while remaining within the bounds of acceptable behavior for someone of my standing who wishes to appear progressive. And all I have to do is pretend to be your mate. For how long?" "Until the seasonal courtship festival concludes, approximately 3 Earth months." Her bioluminescent patterns shifted to a softer hue. "Consider the alternative, Marcus Holloway. The streets of Astra City are particularly unkind to solitary humans." Marcus stared at his alien landlady, weighing his options. Homelessness on an alien world versus playing boyfriend to a 7-foot blue aristocrat with 4 arms. "When do we start?" he asked. Tellerin's patterns brightened with what might have been relief. "Immediately. Pack your belongings. You'll be moving to my residence in the upper city by nightfall." For the first time in weeks, Marcus smiled. "I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." Tellerin tilted her head. "Friendship is not required human, merely convincing performance." But as she turned to leave, Marcus noticed her patterns had shifted to a color he hadn't seen before. One that, had he known Veridian emotional indicators better, might have looked suspiciously like hope. Marcus stood uncomfortably at the edge of the grand reception hall, tugging at the collar of his formal Veridian attire. The garment, a flowing robe made of something between silk and metal, had been custom-tailored for his human proportions, but still felt foreign against his skin. Around him, the elite of Astra City's upper echelon mingled, their tall, graceful forms making him feel like a child who had wandered into an adults-only gathering. "Stop fidgeting," Tellerin murmured, her lower right hand subtly steadying his arm. "You're drawing attention." "I'm already drawing attention," Marcus whispered back. "I'm the only human in a room full of 7-foot blue aristocrats. I might as well have a spotlight on me." It had been 2 weeks since he'd moved into Tellerin's palatial apartment in the city's prestigious Heights district. The space was designed for Veridian proportions, ceilings twice as high as human standard, furniture built for beings with 4 arms and different spinal alignment. Despite Tellerin's efforts to accommodate him with human-sized amenities, Marcus felt perpetually out of place. "Most of them have never interacted with a human outside of commercial contexts," Tellerin explained. "You are a novelty, yes, but also my chosen companion. That gives you status by association." As she spoke, her bioluminescent patterns shifted to a formal configuration, bright along her temples and more subdued along her neck. Marcus had been studying Veridian pattern language, learning that these particular lights signaled respect and high breeding to others of her kind. "Remember our rehearsed responses," she continued. "My family will be especially inquisitive. They're still processing my decision to bond with an alien species." Before Marcus could respond, 3 elegant Veridians approached. The tallest, a male with deep indigo skin and elaborately patterned bioluminescence, regarded Marcus with all 4 eyes narrowed in what humans might interpret as suspicion. "Sister," he addressed Tellerin with a formal bow, "so this is your chosen one." "Elder brother Murtek," Tellerin responded, her upper arms performing a complex greeting gesture while her lower arms remained linked with Marcus's. "May I present Marcus Holloway of Earth? Marcus, this is my brother and his bondmates, Jivlara and Zinpel." Marcus executed the greeting gesture Tellerin had taught him, not perfectly, but passably. "I am honored by your acknowledgement," he said in carefully practiced Veridian, though his translator was active for comprehension. Murtek's patterns flickered with surprise. "It speaks our language, unusual aptitude for its species." "He speaks several languages," Tellerin corrected, her patterns briefly flashing with irritation. "Humans are intellectually complex, brother. It's one of many qualities I find attractive in Marcus." The female Veridian, Jivlara, leaned forward with clear curiosity. "How fascinating. And what position do you hold in human society, Marcus Holloway?" Marcus felt Tellerin tense beside him. They had prepared for this question with a manufactured background that would seem acceptable to Veridian sensibilities. "I am a cultural anthropologist specializing in interspecies relations," he answered smoothly. "My research brought me to Veridian Prime, where I was fortunate enough to meet your sister." "An academic," the third Veridian, Zinpel, commented with a tone Marcus couldn't quite interpret. "How progressive of you, Tellerin." "Progress is inevitable," Tellerin replied coolly. "The consortium expands, species intermingle. Our family has always positioned itself at the forefront of such developments." Martek's patterns dimmed skeptically. "There is a difference between diplomatic openness and personal entanglement. Mother is concerned about succession implications." Marcus felt completely out of his depth as the conversation veered into territory they hadn't rehearsed. Succession implications? He made a mental note to ask Tellerin about this later. "Perhaps we should discuss family matters privately, sister," Murtek continued, all 4 eyes still evaluating Marcus. "Whatever concerns the family can be expressed before Marcus," Tellerin stated firmly. "He is to be my bondmate. There are no secrets between us." The tension between the siblings was palpable, evident in their rapidly changing bioluminescent patterns. Marcus recognized the confrontational flashes along Tellerin's neck, a warning sign he'd learned to identify during their time together. Before the situation could escalate, a melodic chime rang through the hall, signaling the commencement of the formal proceedings. Murtek inclined his head stiffly. We will continue this discussion another time. Mother expects your attendance at the family gathering tomorrow. Bring your anthropologist if you must. As the trio departed, Marcus exhaled slowly. That went well. Actually, it did, Tellerin replied, guiding him toward the central dais where dignitaries were gathering. They addressed you directly. It's more respect than I anticipated. Your brother doesn't approve. Murtek's approval is irrelevant. Only my mother's opinion truly matters in family hierarchy, and she has yet to render judgment. Tellerin's patterns shifted to something softer as she looked down at him. You performed admirably with the language. I'm impressed. Marcus felt an unexpected warmth at her praise. I've been practicing. I figured if I'm going to be your fake mate, I should at least try to look the part. Indeed, Tellerin's lower right hand briefly squeezed his. Though remember, to everyone here, there is nothing fake about our relationship. The success of our arrangement depends on absolute conviction. As they took their positions among Astra City's elite, Marcus became acutely aware of the stares and whispers surrounding them. This charade was far more complicated than he'd initially imagined. He wasn't just pretending to be someone's boyfriend. He was becoming entangled in the complex politics of a Viridian high-status family, with implications he couldn't fully comprehend. Later that evening, as a group of Viridian musicians began a haunting melody, Tellerin leaned down to whisper, "We must participate in the bonding dance. It would be suspicious to abstain." "I don't know the steps," Marcus admitted nervously. Tellerin's patterns shifted to a gentle pulse that he'd come to recognize as reassurance. "Follow my lead. In this, as in all things between us, appearance is what matters. Reality is negotiable." As she guided him onto the dance floor, her forearms positioning his body with surprising gentleness, Marcus wondered just how much of this reality he was truly prepared to negotiate. Marcus woke to the sound of Viridian wind chimes, their crystalline tones signaling the dawn cycle in Tellerin's apartment. After a month of their arrangement, he'd grown accustomed to the rhythms of life in the Heights district. The peculiar meals, the precise social protocols, the constant awareness of being an alien among aliens. He rolled from his sleeping platform, purposely designed for human anatomy, and padded to the balcony that overlooked Astra City. The metropolis sprawled below, its spiral towers catching the light of the rising binary suns. Somewhere down there was the immigrant quarter where he'd nearly been evicted, a world away from this life of privilege. "You're awake early," came Tellerin's melodic voice from behind him. Marcus turned to find his bondmate, dressed in what he recognized as formal business attire, her bioluminescent patterns configured in the sharp, authoritative arrangement she wore for professional settings. "Council meeting?" he asked, gesturing to her appearance. "Yes, urban development proposals," she confirmed. "I'll likely return late. There's a reception afterward I must attend." Marcus nodded, now familiar with the rigorous schedule Tellerin maintained as a senior administrator in Astra City's governance structure. Over the past weeks, he'd learned there was far more to his landlady than her imperious demeanor had initially suggested. She was brilliantly strategic, surprisingly compassionate toward the city's disadvantaged populations, and possessed a subtle sense of humor that emerged in private moments. "Will you need me there?" he asked, uncertain if this was an event requiring his presence as her supposed mate. Tellerin's upper eyes blinked in consideration while her lower pair assessed something on her data tablet. "No, this is purely administrative. However," she paused, her patterns shifting to display what Marcus had come to recognize as concern. "Velmortes will be attending the reception." Marcus tensed at the name. Velmortes, a prominent Viridian business magnate and one of Tellerin's originally intended suitors, had been increasingly suspicious of their relationship. At their last encounter, he had questioned Marcus extensively about Earth customs and his background, clearly probing for inconsistencies. "Has he said something?" Marcus asked. "Not directly, but my sources indicate he's been making inquiries about you, specifically attempting to verify your credentials as an anthropologist." Tellerin set down her tablet, all four eyes focusing on Marcus. "He's requested your academic publications from the Earth Embassy." "Publications that don't exist," Marcus said grimly. "I'm a former mining engineer, not an anthropologist." "Precisely, this presents a complication." Tellerin's lower arms crossed while her upper set gestured in a Viridian expression of strategic thinking. We need to strengthen your background. I've arranged for you to give a lecture at the Interspecies Cultural Institute next week. A lecture? Marcus nearly choked. On what? I can't present academic research I haven't done. You've been living among Veridians, observing our customs, learning our language, Tellerin countered. Present your genuine observations on human Veridian cultural differences. Your outsider perspective would actually be valuable. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Tellerin had once told him was fascinating to watch. This is getting complicated, Tella. When we started this arrangement, it was just about appearing together at social functions, not creating an entire false identity. Tellerin's patterns dimmed slightly, which Marcus had learned indicated something between regret and resolve. The stakes have increased. My mother has postponed the formal rejection of my previously arranged matches due to our relationship. If our arrangement is exposed as fraudulent now, the family consequences would be significant. Marcus sighed and leaned against the balcony rail. Over the past month, he'd witnessed firsthand the immense pressure Tellerin faced from her family. What had begun as a convenient arrangement to solve both their problems had evolved into something more complex. He genuinely cared about protecting her from the machinations of her family and the unwanted suitors. I'll do the lecture, he conceded, but I'll need your help preparing. Tellerin's patterns brightened with relief. Of course, we'll begin tonight when I return. She hesitated, then added, There's something else you should know. My mother has requested your presence at the seasonal blessing ceremony next week. It's significant. Only family and potential bondmates are permitted to attend. That sounds serious, Marcus observed. It is. It suggests she may be considering formal acceptance of our bond. Tellerin's patterns shifted to a configuration Marcus hadn't seen before. This was unexpected. I believed she would resist much longer. Before Marcus could respond, a communication alert chimed. Tellerin checked it, her patterns flashing with annoyance. I must go. We'll discuss the ceremony preparations tonight. She moved toward the door, then paused. Marcus, thank you. This arrangement has proven more demanding than I initially presented. After she left, Marcus returned to the balcony, watching the bustling city below. What had started as a simple business transaction, pretend to be her mate in exchange for housing, had become increasingly entangled with genuine emotion. He found himself thinking about Tellerin throughout the day, noticing the elegant way her patterns shifted with her moods, appreciating her dry observations about Veridian politics, even missing her presence when she worked late. Lost in thought, he barely noticed when his personal communicator pinged with an incoming message. When he finally checked it, his blood ran cold. The sender was Velmorty's. The message was brief. I know what you are, human. Meet me at the Monument Gardens at mid-cycle, or I'll expose your deception to the elder Telavos. Your pretend bondmate's mother would be most interested in learning the truth, don't you think? Marcus stared at the message, realizing their carefully constructed arrangement was on the verge of collapse. He had hours to decide, meet Velmorty's and face whatever ultimatum the Veridian businessman had planned, or risk everything Tellerin stood to lose if their deception was revealed. What had begun as solving his housing problem now felt immeasurably more important. Somehow, against all logic, his fake relationship with an alien landlady had become the most real thing in his life. The Monument Gardens sprawled across one of Astra City's highest plateaus, ancient stone formations interspersed with bioluminescent flora native to Veridian Prime. Marcus arrived precisely at mid-cycle, the twin suns at their zenith casting dual shadows behind each monument. In another circumstance, he might have appreciated the beauty of this place reserved for the city's elite. Today, he felt only dread. Velmorty's was waiting beside a fountain whose water flowed upward against gravity, a demonstration of Veridian technological prowess. At nearly 8 feet tall with slate-gray skin and bioluminescent patterns that pulsed with cold calculation, he cut an imposing figure even among his own kind. You came, Velmorty's observed, his translator rendering his words with clinical precision. Wise decision. What do you want? Marcus asked directly, seeing no point in pleasantries. Refreshing human directness. Velmorty's gestured for Marcus to walk with him along a secluded path. What I want is quite simple, the truth about your arrangement with Administrator Tellerin. Marcus maintained a neutral expression. We're bondmates, there's no arrangement beyond that. Please, Velmorty's patterns flashed with what might have been amusement or contempt. My investigation has been thorough. 6 weeks ago, you were facing eviction from a substandard dwelling in the immigrant quarter. You have no academic credentials. Your employment with Jovo Corp Mining ended when they declared insolvency. Suddenly, you're residing in the Heights district as the chosen mate of one of our most prestigious administrators, who, coincidentally, was under significant pressure to accept a formal bonding proposal. Marcus felt ice spreading through his veins but kept his voice steady. You've been investigating me. I've been protecting my interests, Velmortes corrected. Tellerin and I have been negotiating a potential partnership for over 2 years. Our families have significant business alignments. Then she presents a human with no status as her chosen mate. It warranted scrutiny. They reached a private alcove surrounded by tall, spiral-shaped plants. Velmortes turned to face Marcus directly, all 4 eyes unblinking. Here is what will happen, he stated. You will end this charade. You will inform Tellerin that you wish to terminate your relationship. You will return to the human quarter where you belong. In exchange, I will provide you with sufficient credits for passage back to Earth and ensure your transition is comfortable. Marcus felt anger rising, and if I refuse? Velmortes' patterns darkened to a threatening configuration. Then I present my evidence to Elder Telavos during tomorrow's blessing ceremony. The consequences for Tellerin would be severe. Her professional standing, her family position, both would be compromised. Deception in matters of bonding is viewed as a profound moral failure in our society. The threat hung in the air between them. Marcus understood what was at stake. Tellerin had explained how crucial family honor was in Viridian culture, how her professional achievements were intertwined with her lineage reputation. You claim to want her as a bond mate, Marcus said carefully, yet you'd willingly destroy her reputation. I want what is rightfully mine, Velmortes responded coldly. Tellerin's attempt to circumvent tradition with this human deception merely delays the inevitable. Better a brief social embarrassment now than allowing this farce to continue. His upper right hand extended a data crystal. My contact information and the terms of my offer. You have until tomorrow's dawn cycle to decide. With that, Velmortes departed, leaving Marcus alone among the ancient monuments. When Marcus returned to the apartment, he found Tellerin in her private study, surrounded by floating holographic displays showing complex Viridian text. She dismissed them with a gesture when she noticed him. You seem troubled, she observed immediately, her patterns shifting to a configuration of concern. Marcus hesitated, unsure how to begin. Before he could speak, Tellerin's communication panel chimed with an urgent alert. She checked it, her patterns suddenly flaring with alarm. It's from my mother, she said, turning to Marcus. She requests my immediate presence, alone. They exchanged a look of understanding. Something had changed. Velmortes, Marcus asked. Tellerin's patterns confirmed his suspicion. Most likely, I must go. She moved toward the door, then paused. Whatever happens, Marcus, know that our arrangement has been more valuable to me than I anticipated. After she left, Marcus paced the apartment restlessly, considering his options. As the hours passed without word from Tellerin, his worry intensified. Finally, as the second sun was setting, the door slid open. Tellerin entered slowly, her normally perfect posture slightly diminished, her patterns muted in a way Marcus had never seen before. What happened? He asked, moving to her side. My mother has learned certain truths, she said quietly. Not everything, but enough to question our bond's authenticity. She has issued an ultimatum. Either I end my relationship with you and accept one of the previously arranged matches, or I will be removed from the family lineage. Marcus felt a cold weight in his stomach. Removed from the lineage? What does that mean? It means everything, Tellerin said, her voice uncharacteristically emotional. My position in governance, my property holdings, my social standing, all are connected to my family status. Without it, I become effectively clanless. Marcus ran his hands through his hair in frustration. This is my fault. Velmortes confronted me today. He threatened to expose us if I didn't leave voluntarily. I suspected his involvement, Tellerin said. He has much to gain from our bond's dissolution. They stood in silence for a moment, the gravity of their situation settling between them. I'll go, Marcus finally said. This was always temporary. You've helped me when I had nothing, and I won't be the reason you lose everything that matters to you. Tellorin's patterns flickered in what seemed like surprise. Is that what you believe, that nothing about this matters to me except my status? Before Marcus could respond, another alert chimed, this one on his personal communicator. He checked it, then looked up at Tellorin with wide eyes. It's from the Earth Embassy, he said in disbelief. They've finally processed my repatriation request. There's a transport leaving for the human colonial system tomorrow. They've secured me passage. The timing couldn't have been more pointed, a clear way out for both of them. Tellorin could tell her family he had received unexpected orders to return to his world. Her reputation might survive intact. You should accept, Tellorin said after a long moment, her patterns carefully controlled. It's the logical solution. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. Over the past weeks, he'd learned to read her patterns, to understand the subtle shifts in her posture, to appreciate the brilliance behind her four-eyed gaze. What had begun as a business arrangement had become something he hadn't expected. Is that what you want? He asked quietly. Tellorin's patterns flickered uncertainly. What I want has rarely been relevant in my life. Duty, family, position, these are what guide Viridian decisions. I'm not asking about Viridian decisions, Marcus pressed. I'm asking about yours. Do you want me to go? For the first time since he'd known her, Tellorin seemed genuinely at a loss for words, her patterns shifting through configurations too rapid for him to interpret. The blessing ceremony is tomorrow, she finally said. I have until then to provide my answer to my mother, and you have until dawn to decide about your transport. As night fell over Astra City, Marcus stood on the balcony, staring at the stars. Somewhere up there was Earth, a home he'd been desperate to return to. Now that the opportunity had arrived, he found himself strangely reluctant. The choice before him was impossible: stay and potentially ruin Tellorin's life, or leave and never know what might have been. In the morning, 2 messages would need to be sent, one to the Earth Embassy and one to Elder Telavos. By dawn, everything would change. The first sun of Viridian Prime had barely crested the horizon when Marcus made his decision. He stood in the center of Tellorin's living space, watching the gradual illumination of Astra City below. The Earth Embassy's transport would depart in 3 hours. His few possessions remained unpacked. When Tellorin emerged from her sleeping chamber, her patterns were subdued, configured in what Marcus had come to recognize as her most controlled, emotional suppression mode. You're still here, she observed quietly. The transport. I'm not going, Marcus interrupted. Not unless you truly want me to. Tellorin's patterns flickered with surprise. Marcus, you must understand the reality of our situation. My mother has made her position clear. Velmordes has made his threats. Your embassy has finally offered what you've been seeking for months. I understand everything perfectly, Marcus replied, moving closer to her. What began as an arrangement has become something else entirely, at least for me. These past weeks, living with you, learning about your world, standing beside you. It stopped being pretend a long time ago. All 4 of Tellorin's eyes widened slightly. You cannot mean. I love you, Marcus said simply. I didn't plan it. I didn't expect it. But somewhere between those awkward first social functions and last night's ultimatum, I fell in love with the most remarkable being I've ever known. Tellorin's patterns shifted rapidly, cycling through configurations Marcus couldn't interpret. Interspecies emotional compatibility is highly improbable, she said, though her voice lacked its usual certainty. Our physiologies, our cultural frameworks, they're fundamentally different. And yet here we are, Marcus countered. I've watched you fight for what you believe in at the council. I've seen your compassion for the disadvantaged in the lower city. I've witnessed your brilliance and your subtle humor. Those qualities transcend species. Tellorin's lower arms made a gesture of distress while her upper ones remained rigidly controlled. What you propose is impossible. My family will either accept us or won't, Marcus finished. But I'm tired of living a lie. If we're going to face consequences, let's face them for something real, not for a deception. For a long moment, Tellorin was silent, her patterns shifting through colors Marcus had never seen before. Finally, she stepped forward, all 4 of her arms reaching out to gently frame his face. I have spent my entire life making decisions based on duty and expectation, she said softly. When I proposed our arrangement, it was a calculated strategy to solve a problem. I never anticipated that a human barely taller than a Viridian child would challenge everything I believed about emotional connection. Her patterns suddenly brightened in a configuration he'd never witnessed, radiant, almost joyful. The arrangement may have been false, but what has grown between us is not. Marcus felt hope rising within him. So what do we do? We stop pretending, Tellerin answered, her decision made. We attend the blessing ceremony together, not as a human and Viridian performing roles, but as two beings who have chosen each other despite every improbability. The ancient ceremonial hall of the Tella lineage was imposing, vast ceilings supported by living crystal columns, floors that seemed to flow like water beneath their feet. Viridian elders from the most prestigious families lined the processional path, their formal patterns displaying varying degrees of curiosity and disapproval as Marcus walked beside Tellerin. At the chamber's center waited Elder Tellavos, Tellerin's mother. Towering even among Viridians, with skin the deep blue of ancient oceans and patterns that spoke of generations of authority, she fixed all four of her eyes on the approaching pair. Velmortes stood to one side, his patterns radiating smug satisfaction. He clearly expected to witness Tellerin's capitulation. "Daughter," Elder Tellavos spoke, her voice carrying throughout the chamber. "You appear before the lineage with your chosen companion despite our discussion. Explain yourself." Tellerin stepped forward, her patterns shifting to a configuration of absolute clarity, one that Marcus recognized from her most important council presentations. "Honored mother, respected members of the lineage," she began, "I come before you with truth. When I first presented Marcus Holloway as my chosen bondmate, our relationship was indeed unconventional." A murmur rippled through the assembled Viridians. Velmortes' patterns brightened with vindication. "Our beginning was not traditional," Tellerin continued. "But what has grown between us is genuine, unexpected, and more powerful than any arranged partnership could ever be." Elder Tellavos' patterns darkened. "You admit to deception before the lineage." "I admit to discovering something I never thought possible," Tellerin answered. "Cross-species emotional compatibility was considered a scientific impossibility, yet here we stand as evidence to the contrary." Marcus stepped forward, addressing the assembly in Viridian, his pronunciation careful and deliberate. "I came to your world as a stranger, lost everything, and found something I never expected, a connection that transcends our differences. I stand before you not as a human seeking advantage, but as someone who loves your daughter for who she is, not what she represents." Velmortes moved forward, patterns flashing angrily. "This is absurd. The human was facing homelessness when their arrangement began. This is manipulation, not love." "Yes, I was homeless," Marcus acknowledged calmly. "And yes, our relationship began as mutual convenience. But tell me, Velmortes, why do you seek to bond with Tellerin? For love, or for the political and financial advantages of joining your family with hers?" The assembled elders shifted uncomfortably, their patterns suggesting this directness was unusual in such ceremonies. Elder Tellavos raised all four arms for silence. "The question before us is not how this bond began, but whether it is worthy of lineage recognition." Her penetrating gaze fixed on her daughter. "You understand that choosing this path may still carry consequences." "I do," Tellerin answered without hesitation. "But I also understand something I've observed in council meetings for years. Progress requires courage. Our world is changing. The consortium brings species together in ways our ancestors never imagined. If we cannot evolve, we will stagnate." For a long moment, Elder Tellavos was silent, her patterns unreadable. Finally, she stepped forward. "Progression and tradition need not be enemies," she said, her voice carrying throughout the chamber. "Our lineage has survived 17 generations by knowing when to hold firm and when to adapt." She turned her gaze to Marcus. "Human, do you understand what it means to join a Viridian lineage? The responsibilities, the expectations?" "I'm learning," Marcus answered honestly. "And I will continue to learn because Tellerin is worth every effort." Elder Tellavos' patterns shifted subtly. "Perhaps there is wisdom in this unexpected union. The lineage will observe and evaluate." She raised her upper arms in a formal gesture. "The blessing ceremony will proceed. The bond will be recognized provisionally." Velmortes' patterns flared with outrage. "Elder Tellavos, this is unprecedented. The implications for interlineage agreements are changing, as all things must," Elder Tellavos interrupted. "You may withdraw your interest in my daughter without dishonor, Velmortes. There will be other opportunities for our families to align." Later, as the twin suns set over Astra City, Marcus and Tellerin stood on their balcony. The provisional blessing had been granted, not full lineage acceptance, but a beginning, a chance to prove their bond's worth. "What happens now?" Marcus asked, still processing the day's events. Tellerin's patterns had settled into a configuration he'd never seen before, serene content. "Now we build something real. No more pretending, no more arrangements. Just us, discovering what an interspecies relationship truly means." "Your mother still has doubts, as does most of Viridian society," Tellerin acknowledged. "We will face challenges, but we've already overcome the most unlikely odds, finding each other across the vastness of space." Marcus smiled, reaching for her hand. "From eviction notice to family blessing in 6 weeks. Not bad for a stranded human and his alien landlady." Tellerin's patterns brightened with amusement. "I believe I prefer bondmate to landlady." As the city lights came alive below them, Marcus felt a sense of belonging he'd never experienced before. Not on Earth, not anywhere in human space. In the most unexpected place, with the most improbable partner, he had found home. "To new beginnings," he said, gazing up at the stars they would navigate together. Tellerin's patterns shifted to match the constellations above. "To true bonds," she agreed, "formed not from obligation but from choice." In the distance, the spaceport lights glowed as the Earth transport departed without him. Marcus didn't look back.